Welcome to another edition of Actors Take, coming to you from the Captain's Lounge Studios, right here in Longmont, Colorado. I have got a motley crew with me today. And how do I know this? It is dead simple. We were talking before we started recording the show. So, this is a new crew to Actors Take. As always, we're going to do a quick round table with a simple question. So why did you get into acting? Melissa, why don't we start off with you?
I'm Melissa Fike, and I never expected to get into acting. I was painfully shy as a child, but I loved music and I loved musicals and listened to musicals, and my favorite musical was My Fair Lady. And as a freshman in high school, they decided to do My Fair Lady. And my best friend said, please, please come audition with me. I promise all you'll have to do is stand in the back and sing. So I auditioned and I got in, and the director saw something in me and gave me a scholarship to his acting school. And so I started taking acting lessons with him, did tech work all through high school, did only a couple of shows. And then once I was in college, said, all right, I'm going to go for this. And I actually ended up minoring in theater in college and working professionally. And now I just continue to perform for fun.
And you just love doing it?
I loved it. It
Excellent.
Absolutely opened up a whole new world to me.
Emily?
Sure. I'm Emily Gerhard, and I grew up in a super musical family. My dad was an opera singer. My mom and my dad met doing musicals together in college. And so I spent probably most of my formative years learning to accompany my dad in all his performances. So I grew up playing the piano. I played the oboe in high school, and so I was very much like a band, instrumental, orchestral geek. And so honestly, I think I was just like ready to break out of that. And so like on a whim, you know, in high school and college, I just started auditioning for shows and got into them, and realized I really liked it, and I wasn't going to stop doing it anytime soon. So here I am. It's my favorite thing to do.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Did you keep up your musical?
I like to think I did.
Good, good. Don't let those drift. Don't let those drift for acting. Make sure they stay on par.
Use it or lose it.
Because there's going to come a time where you'll be playing an instrument on stage. Now that does happen in shows. Yeah. Shane, yourself.
I'm one of kind of those annoying people who didn't really have a choice. My dad likes to tell a story about when I was 3 and my friends were going to be nurses or firemen or teachers or doctors. I was going to sing commercials. So it was just never a question for me. And I did little scenes and vignettes in school and whatnot, and then auditioned for my first show with the Longmont Theater Company when I was in 7th grade. And
what show was that?
The Music Man. Music Man. And never looked back.
So that would have been the potpourri players.
Yeah, when they were still the potpourri players.
Yeah, potpourri players, I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I did that show. A year or two later, I did Sound of Music. Went to college, got a BFA in acting. Went on to grad school, master's with an emphasis in directing, and finally did the PhD in theater studies. So it's been what I've done my whole life.
So you are a font of knowledge when it comes to theatre?
Supposedly.
According to the piece of paper you have.
According to my according to my certification. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, my name's Jay Moretz, and I remember one of my earliest memories was my father was an early adopter of satellite dish. So we had things like HBO and the like early on in my life. And I was watching the 70-something production of Oliver, the movie. And I remember watching that and thinking to myself, I sing better than he does. I'm a lot less breathy. Why couldn't I do this? And that's kind of my earliest thought of getting into that sort of thing. And then I did a few things as a child in our community theater, but they kept me out late. And my father didn't appreciate that, so I didn't get to do very many of them. There was a big fight in the family, and kept him out past midnight. But then in high school and college, I got into more and more of the theater, and then just kind of kept up with it.
And it just stuck with you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I really enjoy. You know, as a kid, I was pretty shy, and I was not the most popular in school. So I had some issues with some bullying and stuff like that, and I really appreciated the ability to be someone else. So it kind of lets me have that outlet.
Yes. Anyway, we are all surrounded by a cast from Gypsy, which is the current show at the Longmont Theatre Company. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the show? I know tonight is the final night. The curtain call will come. You will all wander over Mike O'Shea's and get totally legless. I remember those days well. Why don't you just sort of have a little round table here? Let's talk about Gypsy a little bit. What got you interested in doing this show? In fact, talk about how you auditioned. What made you want to go to the audition, and how did you do your audition that you think may have been a little bit different and got yourself the role that you actually did get? So who'd like to start off on that one?
I will, I guess.
Go ahead, Joe.
I auditioned for Gypsy, to be honest, because it was one of the first productions after I finished my bachelor's degree. So I've been working on a bachelor's degree, and I couldn't do everything. So I had to drop something, and that was theater. So it was one of the first shows afterwards, and I thought that I would be at least able to get some role. I auditioned for the role I usually do, which is any male role. But that's kind of why I did it, and I went there hoping for Herbie. I was beaten out for that by someone of immense talent, so I really have no qualms about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It was the available show at the time.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Emily?
Sure. I heard that Longmont was doing this show. I had been performing in Denver for a little bit at some local theaters there, and then I heard Longmont was doing Gypsy, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to audition for one of the strippers, because that was one of my the formative movie musical I watched all the time, and I thought that these three comedic stripper characters were just hysterical.
If you want to get on the table and strip, you know,
I mean,
no one's going to stop you.
Thank you.
You're very
that
welcome.
Permission.
I might stop you, Emily.
You might stop me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shane, be prepared to tackle
man.
Melissa to the floor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I was actually really surprised to be called back for the part of Luis. I think I thought that I was, I don't know, my voice was too brassy for her, I wasn't elegant enough, or all these things. And then I got to callbacks, and I felt really good about it. Yeah, they asked me to kick in the air and do all these things that I actually don't do in the show, and I was like, I could do this. I can probably do this if they cast me. So it's been so fun.
Good.
It's been so fun.
Good.
I would still like to be one of the comedic strippers, but maybe next time.
I've always felt, whenever I've been in a show, is that it has to be fun for community theatre. If you're getting paid for a performance, it doesn't have to be fun because it's your job.
Right.
And let's be honest, not many people enjoy their jobs. That's a fact. But when it's community, it doesn't matter whether you're acting, directing, tech, lights, stage manager, it doesn't matter. Oh, the ushers, they have got to enjoy doing it. Otherwise, why are they there? Anyway, Shane, sorry.
Well, nobody does Gypsy unless you're Broadway or the West End or maybe some of the bigger...
Why do you think that is?
It's a monster of a show. It's a huge show. And to go into... For a theater company to go into Gypsy without having a Mama Rose, to have an open casting call for a Mama Rose is kind of terrifying, I would think.
Okay, when you say do you mean in the number of cast or the complexity?
The number of cast, the complexity, it's not an easy show. It spans a significant amount of time. There are generations. There are at least 3 generations in this cast. And it's arguably the quintessential piece of American musical theater. It's an outstanding example of a traditional American book musical, but it contains antecedents of vaudeville and burlesque to the American book musical. So it contains within itself its own history. So it's a huge undertaking, and because of that, it's so rarely done. And like they're doing Gypsy, I've got to audition for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you did.
Yes, and I got cast somehow. So,
Melissa, just before we get to you, which we will, don't worry, I haven't forgotten you. Was there a shortage of men? Because there's always a shortage of men that audition for these large shows.
I don't remember a shortage. I remember there were, as is almost always the case, there were more women to choose from than there were men to
Yes.
choose from.
Yes.
But I don't think.
And what's the split of roles? About 50-50, or is it what would be your approximate guess? Anybody?
I would say there are probably more women. The two of the three major characters are women. The children are often played by a mix of boys and girls. And then we actually did have a really good amount of men to
We did
choose
have a good
from.
turnout of men.
And we've got wonderful chorus men, which is hard to find.
That's hard to
that
find.
can dance, tap dance, sing, play multiple parts. There are, I would say, in terms of the chorus, there's probably a split of male to female, but
Okay. When it comes to chorus, you can do the mix and match a lot easier than when it comes to the front. A lot easier. Melissa, why did you decide you wanted to tackle this show?
and tackle is the perfect word for this show. I only do one show a year. My job and my family don't allow me to do as much theater as I would like to do, so I'm very picky about what I choose to do. So I look ahead to say what's coming up in the various theaters in the area. And I love working at Longmont Theater Company because it's 5 minutes from my house, and I've done several shows with them. But I saw they were doing Gypsy, and like Shane, nobody does Gypsy.
Yeah.
And Mama Rose is the ultimate musical theater role for a woman of my age. So I had actually worked on, my high school did Gypsy, and I ran props for the show. Again, a monster undertaking for the show, and I said, someday, if I don't play one of the strippers, I'm going to play Mama Rose. And so I months ago knew that LTC was going to do this and said, this is my part.
This will be the show I'm
This
going to
is
do.
it.
This is it.
This is it, and this is a bucket list role for me. My other bucket list role I got to do at LTC a few years ago, which was Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd. And I thought, I'll never top that. And I think I might have with this one.
That's good.
So I was thrilled to
That's good.
be able to. And I wasn't the only Mama Rose out there, so I was very, very thrilled to
To be cast.
be cast.
Wonderful. We have talked about this before, but it's worth reiterating just how much time it takes as actors to put on a show like Gypsy. So how long was your rehearsal? About how many weeks?
Well,
The active rehearsal period was actually about 7 weeks
Right.
long.
7 weeks.
We had gotten the scripts a few weeks ahead of time so that we could start to prepare. And then the way this particular process worked is we started with musical rehearsals.
Yeah, that's-
And then choreography, which is very typical, and then blocked the
And then
show.
blocking the show
and
in.
started putting all the pieces together.
Right. It's funny because I directed Narnia. I don't know if any of you saw that one. That also was a horrendously big show to do. And the problem I had was getting the Narnians to behave like Narnians. Because up until about the final week, all I was seeing was humans dressed in animal costumes looking like humans. And eventually the elder cast members got the younger cast members to realize that this is how you have to be a Narnian. You know, squirrels have to do things like this. And when you're working with it, I had a vast age range, but when you're working with people you know, especially the younger actors, they don't understand. They think they're looking silly. They're not. It's if they don't do this that they begin to look silly.
Right.
And eventually we did the giant 180, and it just all clicked together. And it was wonderful. And just as a quick note, I still hold the record at the theatre for the largest cast with the youngest cast member to the eldest cast member.
Wow.
And is when I did my version of Christmas Carol, and we had 70 people on stage.
Oh, Lord.
I kid you not. And you know, Tom knows this because he was there filming it with us. We had 70 people in the cast. My youngest cast member was 6 months, and my eldest was 82.
Well, you win. Yeah.
It was funny actually because I think word spread because on closing day, the theatre seats 290, or it did back then. They've taken out those back seats now. But it was under the 300, and we had over 400 people in there.
The fire
Goodness.
Fire marshal doesn't need to watch
Yeah.
this.
No.
That was funny. That was funny. So let's talk about levels.
Gosh.
All right, we won't
Very
talk about
important.
levels.
Don't get me started on levels.
I feel like
No.
I feel like I should get you started on levels.
You don't need to.
No, I think you should express, you know, the fact that there are no such things as levels. Levels are flat.
Well, you brought up. Oh gosh, I don't think I have anything left to say about levels.
Oh, fair enough.
We've really said all that could be
Yeah,
said.
Yeah, the trouble is we didn't record it, and of course this is going to really upset the audience that are
I'm
watching this
sure.
video because they won't know what the.
This is what's
talking
known as an
about.
in-joke.
We apologize.
Sorry, guys, you know.
Not everything can be known.
No. You know that famous American expression, shit happens. You know, what can I say? So, now that you have done this show, and obviously you are all incredibly excited about having been in this show, do you think there's going to be an anticlimax for the next show? Or do you have that, you know, tonight at what, 10 o'clock, the curtain closes, you do your bows, and then that show's behind you. And you're now ready to move on to the next. How do you deal with this?
Oh gosh. I think I approach every show's closing kind of like a breakup that I see coming, where I just immediately start looking for the next thing. So it's like, oh, I'm not going to miss you because I already have this other thing lined up. So bye. But that doesn't happen. I treat every show as a, you know, like an old friend who you can't go back and visit it because they have evaporated into past shows land. And this one will be a super hard goodbye, I feel like, because it was such a colossal undertaking for a community theater, and we put so much work into it, and it was such a freaking fun role.
Right.
Yeah.
And did the whole cast gel very, very quickly?
I don't know about quickly.
It took a while
Yeah.
because our rehearsals were separate for different groups of people.
Ah, right.
So we would have the showgirls rehearsing, or the newsboys rehearsing, or the strippers rehearsing. So it actually took a while for us to all be together on stage.
That must
And
have been a little strange.
it was a very different experience. I have to say, I'm used to being in more ensemble shows. That's more of the work I'm used to doing. So a show like this, as Shane said, a quintessential book musical, there are specific groups of people, and that's how it was rehearsed until the last couple of weeks.
And then you all got.
And then everybody came together,
together.
and we gelled together so much that we have our own plague
Yeah.
running through the show. And I believe I was patient X, where I got sick a few weeks before we opened, and it hasn't gone away yet from everybody. It's just been
It
traveling
just sort
through the
of jumps
cast.
around.
So we have our own Gypsy plague.
Yes.
The
which-
joys of having that vast changing room backstage.
Yes, with 38 people. So as a result, it took us a while, but once we were all together, and the cast members do all the set changes. We have very few actual crew members backstage. It's the cast doing it. And because of that, we all have to have each other's backs.
Yes.
And so that created a quicker bonding in a shorter period of
Right.
time.
Are you actually doing this with the curtains open or shut? The set changes?
Some are open, some are shut.
Oh, okay.
We actually rehung the drapes, so we have red curtains instead of the traditional blues. And there are 3 levels of curtains that get open
okay.
and closed throughout the show.
That's useful. That's useful.
Yes.
And I'd like to say that I think the process of bringing everyone together was a very interesting one for me, because it was a show where you'd come into rehearsal and you'd do the rehearsal and you would see, to myself anyway, in my personal opinion, little progress from a previous rehearsal. I don't feel like I'm getting there, or it looks like this scene is taking too long, or things like that. And for me, it was kind of a roller coaster, because it was, oh my gosh, I don't know how this is going to happen. I'm so worried we're going to open soon. And then, oh, that was great. Okay, well, we're ready now. Just kind of all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, sort of, you felt, we can do this now.
Yeah, to me, the process seemed a lot more like a wall was jumped over, rather than kind of gradual improvement.
Did anyone else feel like this?
I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting. All 4 of you
Yeah,
feel this.
it was very much a show where there are just so many moving parts between actors and set pieces and tech and music and choreography.
Costume changes.
It was kind of like waiting for glue to set. And there's the moment when it sets, and then before that, it is a sloppy mess.
I have worked on shows like that,
Right?
and they were sloppy messes on opening night.
And like, yeah, and you're doing all you can for your part.
Right.
But there's just parts that you have no control over, and there's so much trust that's happening on coming from all directions. And when it comes together, it's just so satisfying.
Yes.
But yeah, it was kind of difficult to see progress when you're rehearsing. It's just the structure of the show. There's 3 people in a scene here. There are 4 people in a scene here. And you're not seeing the entire
the overall
picture of the
picture.
show, the arc even, in some cases. So
Yeah, I managed to get through the entire rehearsal process with never seeing their final scene.
right.
Really?
Yeah. So it sounds good from backstage, but I never got to see it.
And you can't watch it from the wings?
I am where I have to be in the wings to do a technical thing. There's a door in the way. So
Drill a hole.
What's going on over there?
Hold on.
Open it, poke through. What's going on this side? One thing that I will confess was frustrating for me is I felt like we sometimes added something before we had gotten the first thing we started polished. Like we added set shifts before I felt like we'd attended to some of the performance things. And so we were still working through those, and then we added costumes before I felt like we kind of got to do some of these other things. And I think doing that other stuff early was what propelled us over that kind of wall that Jay talked about, was that we were more ready than we knew that we were. Because other stuff had been added in earlier, and we didn't wait until a tech day to add everything. And for me, I think that's what pushed us over.
And this probably all happened the week before Hell Week?
The week of.
The week of.
Oh, the week
The
of
week
Hell
of.
Week, it all came together.
So 3 nights before opening, we had our first technical rehearsal with orchestra, costumes, set changes, all of that. And typically, like Shane said, most things have gelled, and then you just add in the lights or you just add in the band. But because things had been being placed all the way along, nobody really had any idea what it was all going to look like or sound like. And so, for instance, I've never seen the stripper number. I have no idea what that looks like, even though my character is on stage for all but about 10 minutes of the show. So I probably have gotten a chance to work with more of the different groups than you guys did, but there were these isolated little pieces, and we had no idea until a couple of nights before we opened what it was going to actually look like.
Wow.
So, but it did. It gelled.
It just gelled and worked.
It came together, and we all looked at each other and went,
How'd that happen?
where did that come from?
Yeah.
So,
I worked on a show called Chaps. We have talked about Chaps on Actors Take before, and I'm not going to go into any names here, but basically, the night before opening night, we were feeling really uncomfortable about the show, and we met on Friday evening at Mike O'Shea's. There was only 5 members of the cast. And we all had a beer and we talked about it, and we said, right, he said, we know exactly how to do this show, we're going to do it our way. And we did.
Yipes.
And it just plain worked.
fabulous.
Because there was so much visual gags in the show. And, you know, as an actor, you need to know exactly what's happening next. I'll give you a good example of this. We did Cool Water. My character had a bit of a drinking issue. Actually, Nigel has a bit of a drinking issue, but we won't talk about that now. My character had a bit of a drinking issue, and they take away my flask, and the 4 of them are meant to hide the flask. And our director wanted them to just hide the flask and let me find it. Okay, well, one of our cast members was female. I think the last thing she wanted was to be patted down by Nigel singing Cool Water. Okay, Beth, hold still.
It's got to be here somewhere.
And we had already worked out how we wanted to do that particular scene. But, you know, sometimes as a cast, you just have to do what you have to do. Who is your director, by the way?
Teresa Collins.
Oh, Teresa. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. She's good.
Well, it's interesting. The last time she had directed adults was in 1999.
Yes.
At the theater. So this, as Shane said, it's a multi-generational cast.
Yes.
So she had to deal with a wide range of people and a lot of people. So
Yes.
Yes. There were children, there were
And
adults.
children's parents.
we
There
have
are
a dog.
adults acting
There
like
is a
children.
dog. We have a live
We have a
dog as
dog.
well.
A dog.
Yes.
And I'm sure there were some children who thought they could act like adults.
Children who thought they were adults.
And
yes.
yeah. Does anyone else want to sort of talk about sort of acting in a more general sense?
Yeah,
I mean, what-
I would. Emily talked about what she does when a show is over, right? And I personally like to keep a hold of shows that are over. And the nice thing about community theater, and this may be true of certain professional troupes as well, but the nice thing about community theater is as big as it is, it's still pretty small. And so you'll still tend to see people again and again. Oh, I worked with this person here, and I worked with that person there, and it's fun for me to kind of compare and contrast in different shows. Oh, well, we were in that other show together. Do you remember when this happened? And oh, that was nothing like this. With Melissa, I had the experience of being in Sweeney Todd. I was in the chorus. And so now every other musical is easy because we did Sweeney Todd. So we can always look back on that and go, well, at least we don't have to do the, E sharp above middle C or anything like that, So I think I like to just kind of carry all those shows forward into whatever it is that I do next.
Do you totally rebuild your personality? As an actor, I always rebuild my personality for when I go out on stage, depending on how I'm cast. And that personality goes on the minute I open the loading dock doors and walk in, and it stays on until the minute I open it and go home. Then I'm no longer that character. I'm able to shed it totally. But while I'm in the theatre, during the run, I am that character, which people find most strange because it means that I will treat you exactly as my character would treat you backstage, which can be a little bit awkward at times, but it's how I stay in character. How do you actually manage to do that?
If I treated everybody like my character,
Oh, that's right.
who is the most narcissistic stage mother of all time, I would probably be attacked out in the parking lot, particularly with all the children in the cast. It would be very frightening. I've done shows where I have absolutely delved in and become that person. But now, because I pick and choose what I want to do, a lot of the time I will look for roles where I see a part of myself in it, and I take and embellish myself. But I do find that in order to develop relationships with the people around me, I keep that part separate. So when I'm in the dressing room, I'm joking around with the kids. I'm, talking with people. We're just teasing each other, and then I become the character when I'm on stage.
Right.
Particularly for a character like this,
Yes.
which would be very difficult to relate to people.
Yes. Shane.
It does vary a bit from role to role. I played Tom Joad years ago in my younger and thinner days, and I really had to take some time before the show. I also couldn't eat before the show. I needed to be hungry to play Tom Joad, because there are points in that story where he's close to starving. But that's about as method as I ever got. With Herbie, I've been very Stanislavskian with Herbie. Action-oriented, objective, what does he want? And I haven't felt the need to, like you mentioned, be in character in the theater the entire time. I take a few moments before each scene and kind of imagine
And then
a moment
yes.
before, what was I just doing, and then take that onto stage with me in pursuit of what he's trying to accomplish next.
Right.
So I do slip in and out of character in this case a bit more than
I guess I slip in and out as well, but not too much.
yeah.
Because again, I've done roles where if I'd have been that role behind stage, they would have killed me.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. How about yourself?
Sure. I actually think that I adopt a role in a theater and backstage that is just like a heightened version of myself and my personality. Like, I'm just like a ball of energy that just goes around and tries to infect other people with my energy like a ping pong ball. And then I go on stage and I become, like the character is insecure, fiercely loyal, and like, I'm at this level and I can bring it down from there, or I can shoot it up like that. But I think it's just part of like just feeling very energized to be in a theater and wanting everyone to feel as jazzed about performing as I do. But yeah, I can't say that I've ever become a character in that way where it was, I don't know, probably just an emotionally shallow person.
Oh, I find that very difficult to believe. Jay.
I've never been a method actor. I've read about method acting, but I'm more of an action actor, I remember situations that are similar to where the actor is. I don't have to experience those real situations. So I don't need to get shot to pretend I got shot.
Now, shall we put that to the vote?
Yeah.
Who believes Jay should get shot?
Suddenly there's method.
Yeah.
coming
Yeah,
into
method is
play
now?
here.
Okay. And in this show especially, I play 3 different roles. So, I can't be one person all the way through. That would be silly.
Big, small.
They're small roles.
They're small roles,
Yes.
but pivotal.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
Yes.
they're...
Yes.
Well, I've got 2 here that say yes, so...
Then I'll agree with them.
You are a
They're
pivotal-
smarter than I
You
am.
are a pivotal actor, sir.
What I do personally is take a few moments before I go on stage to kind of get the feeling of what that character's going to do. If I'm in one scene I'm worried, so I sit in the wings and I'm like, okay, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Okay, and I get worried, and then go on and am able to continue on like that.
Bring it in, yeah.
Yeah.
Do any of you sort of stand in the wings thinking, I wonder what my first line is? Does that happen to any of you?
All the time.
All the time.
It's not just me then.
Even last night, we had to turn in our scripts last night, and I have a habit of every single day of performance, I go through the entire script and read through my lines
Just to
again.
go through it, yeah.
And I had to turn in my script last night and I didn't have it. So I found our assistant director who was backstage and I borrowed his script so I could do it. And maybe part of it is ritual, but also my character in this particular show has so many lines and so many of them are non sequiturs. So she'll mention a line and say, "You're just one big surprise after another. Well, let's go shopping for the material for your gown tomorrow." And they have nothing to do with anything else. So that's always a source of tension for me in this show is, will I remember the non sequitur jump?
That's exactly the problem I had when I played the High Court judge in Witness for the Prosecution. Because I had to keep interrupting the lawyers continually. Knowing exactly when to interrupt was a nightmare. So I kept the script up on the bench with me, and I can honestly say I never learnt a line in that show because I just read it from the damn script. And then they had the nerve to give me Best Supporting Actor. Ah, well.
Doesn't say Best Supporting Memorizer.
I know.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I don't know how, you know, it is so difficult when the two lawyers are a good example. Their dialogues were so similar all the way through for an hour and a half, whatever that second act runs for. And yeah, it was difficult. It was tough. You have both acted professionally.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of an idea of what it's like, the difference between acting professionally and then acting for community.
It's very different. I worked at Disney World as a singer and dancer for a year. I had taken a leave of absence from my teaching job and said, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see what it's like to be a professional actor and make my living doing that. And so I got this job at Disney. And so I was there for a year, but I had to work side jobs to supplement my income. It didn't matter if I was sick. There were 200 people that would be waiting to go on for me, and I could lose my contract. So there was a constant source of pressure, and we had to work for ways to make it fun because it was our job doing. Typically, Disney shows are 27 minutes long. Mine was a dinner show, so it was an hour and 27 minutes long, and we did 8 shows a week. And it became a source of stress for me, and I wasn't doing it for fun anymore. I was doing it because I had to pay my rent and my health insurance and that sort of thing. Then when I moved back to the New York area and was able to find part-time professional work, and I did a show called The News and Review, which was an off-Broadway show, but that only ran on weekends, and then we had a television gig off of it. So I was able to have my hand in the professional world, but still have a real world job. And even that got tired after a while because I couldn't pick projects that I wanted to do. I was stuck in something that became a requirement. So I made the decision to, and it was a very conscious decision, that if I wanted to do this for fun, community theater was going to be the way that I could do that. And I could pick and choose what I want to do. And we've done several shows together, and it's so nice to revisit with friends and
do shows that you want to do.
And I get to pick the material.
Right.
And I'm not locked into America's memory lane. You know? So for me, it's been a conscious choice, and it's been a good choice for me.
Shane, how about yourself?
A similar experience to Melissa. I never made a living as an actor. I made some money as an actor, but never enough to live off of. I always had to have the side gigs. And I got to a point where I realized that I just wasn't really happy living that way. But I also knew that I didn't want to leave theater. And so I did some pretty significant soul searching. I'm like, okay, well, when were you happiest doing theater? And the answer was college. And so that's what sent me to grad school, with that intent of working largely in the academy. Because it is a very different experience. You're there to do a job, and you're there to do a very specific job. And you are not there to ask other people about their job. Sometimes you come in, they hand you a costume, you put it on, and you do your thing. You get to, you get to have ideas about your character and have an enormous amount of creative input that way. But you're expected to think about the show in a very narrow way, and that is your specific role in it. And one of the great things about community theater is that it is a community. And if, Jay has an idea about a scene, or Melissa has an idea about, something for the strippers, we could all go out to Teresa or to Tanya, the music director, Helen, the choreographer, and say, hey, I had this idea. Would you like to try it? And so you get to interact more broadly.
Right.
In productions in a way that's really satisfying and really enriching that you don't usually get to do when working professionally.
When I direct, I give actors free rein to try stuff during rehearsals.
Yeah.
Just try it. If I don't like it, I'm going to talk to you about
We'll
it.
do something else.
But and I found it was better doing it that way than them coming up and saying, Nigel, we've got a good idea. Because as soon as I hear the words "good idea," I'm rather apt to put a black line through it. So it's far better when I was directing that they'd work out what they wanted to try, and then in rehearsal just go ahead and try it. And if we don't like it, we don't like it. If we do like it, 2 thumbs up, let's keep it.
And if I'm in a scene and the idea is about something my own character is doing, then that's usually what I default to, is I just try something. And if it's something really different, I usually try to let the other person know. I went in a completely opposite direction from what we'd been doing in rehearsal in one scene. I'm like, just so you know, I haven't lost my mind. I'm just trying something, before we get in there. But there was a light thing toward the end of the show that I had an idea about and went to Teresa.
Right.
And that she ended up incorporating. So if you're not able to be on stage and just do it and just try it, then
You've worked professionally too, right, Emily?
I've done a little bit. I've done cheesy commercials, training videos, and the like.
Which cheese?
Sorry, which cheese?
Yeah, which cheese?
Oh gosh.
Was it a cheddar advert?
I wish I could just,
Oh, it wasn't.
wow, this cheese is good. We should take that again.
It wasn't something from Wisconsin, was it?
No, it wasn't. No.
Okay.
Again, I wish. I would love to be a cheese spokesmodel someday. Yeah. So nothing where I'm playing a role that I can bring any of my own heart and soul into. It's like I'm playing a wife who doesn't know how to read her insurance bill. That's not something that I can say, I brought something really special to that role. It's just a lot of,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So aside from film work where it's vaguely staring at a bill and or bringing coffee to a table, laying down pancakes, I haven't done too much. I mean, and that's it's mostly fun because you can't believe you're being paid for it.
If you were given a chance to do acting professionally, would you do it?
I think I would. I think I would try it.
Okay. In Father-Daughter Day, Alex, my daughter, who is in Hollywood, she was what? She would have been about 16 or nearly 17. And I arranged to take her down to the Denver Theatre Complex. And I'd arranged for a tour all backstage through all of the theatres down there. Was it 4 of them? Or was it 3? 4. 4. So, and all backstage, and then to actually sit down and watch some of a rehearsal of a show, and then talk to one of the actresses from the show. This actress, I wish I could remember her name, but I can't. But she came up, and she and Alex are chatting away, and the actress said to Alex, Alex, she says, if there are 2 things in your life that you truly, truly love, and if one of them is acting, do the other.
Yep.
I would agree with that.
So, yeah.
Yeah. If you can be happy doing anything other than theater.
Not just theatre. I mean, if you get a technical position in a theatre, that's great. If you get directing, that's great.
Yeah.
Providing your name is known, of course. But acting, it's such a fickle profession.
Yeah. If you can be happy doing anything else,
do it.
Do it.
I would also say that even in community theater, and I can only imagine it's even more in professional where you're doing 8 shows a week or something like that, it's a lot of sacrifice of your life, and so if you have family and friends and other things you like to do, there are sacrifices you have to make. There are choices that you have to
Absolutely.
make to do acting instead.
Especially if you're in a show that's touring,
Right.
where you're in a different city every week, and you may not see your family for months on end. Very, very difficult.
When Cherry Jones took the role of the president on that television show 24, I think it was, there was a neat little short interview in People or Entertainment Weekly, something like that. And she said, she said, I love the stage. The stage will always be my home, you know. But one of the nice things about television is the consistency of the schedule. I was finally able to go to a family funeral for the first time since I started acting professionally. And it's that notion of, you know, you miss funerals because you have to do your job.
Oh, yes.
You know, you miss weddings because you have to do your job. And so it's tough. It's even for the successful folks, it comes at great sacrifice in other ways.
Oh, it does, across the board. I mean, I used to be in the software industry, okay? And of course, software releases, as we know, sort of like, when's this meant to go out? July. And of course, when July comes, it just sort of whistles past your head and disappears backwards and all the rest of it. Whereas in theatre, 7:30, Friday, we open. There are no ifs, there are no ands, there are no buts.
No.
And it's probably the one job where that is absolutely true.
That's true. There's not, you can't call someone to cover your shift.
That's right.
Right.
There's
None of that. You
very
have to
little
be there.
vacation.
Yeah. Are they paying well at the LTC now?
Oh, so well. Yes.
I heard a rumor that you guys got at least double what I used to get.
I found 83 cents on the dressing room floor.
That's true. He's our highest
I
paid
think that
actor.
was mine.
That was a bonus.
But I think that's what's great about community theater, though, is, you know, I don't have the ability to head out to Hollywood and spend potentially years living out of my car trying to break in somewhere, you know.
Well, hoping to break
Hoping to break
Hoping.
in, right.
It's
It
not
may
even
never happen.
It may never happen.
But with community theater, I can just show up. And maybe I get the part, maybe I don't. If I don't, there's another one in a couple of months.
Just down the road.
Or another theater, down
Just
the road.
down the road.
And so it helps me really scratch that itch that I've had since I saw Oliver the movie, of wanting to be in that world and wanting to be able to inhabit those other people, but without all the stress of having to like live and eat. So so there are some time sacrifices, but there aren't the hardships, like the financial hardships.
Right. Let's do it round table. What are your favourites? Musical, drama, comedy? What do you enjoy? Come on, Emily, give us a give us. Is there only a choice of three?
Jeez.
I'm going to talk levels again.
Comedy.
Comedy.
Comedy. I love doing comedy roles. I love comedy. I love it.
I love comedy as well, for the simple reason that you have to really stay in tune with the audience as well as your fellow actors.
Yeah.
Which is a hell of a kick to get that timing absolutely
It's so
perfect.
good. It's so good when it works.
Yeah, and it's so annoying when it doesn't.
Oh yeah, it's painful.
Shane, what's your favourite?
I'm going to kind of break your rule a little bit. And the shows that I get most passionate about are shows that really tackle social, cultural concerns. So whether it's a musical or a comedy or a drama, if it's tackling something.
If it's doing, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's perfectly
the way that
acceptable.
Elephant Man might tackle disability,
Yes.
concerns. The way that Gypsy, especially for its time, questioned that notion of the need of a man, and has dialogue with it that way. So I like shows that are deliberately taking something on, whether they communicate a specific point of view about it or not, but specifically take it on.
Right.
Are the ones that really get me going.
Musical comedy.
There we go.
Breaking rules again.
No.
Musicals first and foremost. That's why I love singing, and through my singing, I love to perform. But and musical dark comedies, you know.
Yes.
But I like musical drama as well. But a good musical comedy, there's just nothing better.
That's why we all love doing Chaps so much, because it was so much fun. Singing all that old 19th century cowboy music in such a well-written play. It was, we had a gas doing that one. Jay, what's your
I
favorite?
would also have to say musicals. I really love the magical realism of musicals. The world where you get so emotional you just have to sing about it. You know, that's, I wish the world was really like that. I choose to believe that back in 1776, it was like the musical 1776.
I'm sure it
They were
was.
singing, there was dancing. That's what I choose history really is.
Powdered wigs.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
Probably an intermission somewhere.
We're glad the Brits are dead. We're glad the... Yeah, anyway,
But
yes.
that's what I love. Plus, I'm a solid double threat, so you know that helps me as well.
Right.
If I can just find the entirely in a wheelchair musical, that'll be
Right.
the show for me probably. So I don't have to dance.
I have one final question. Do you think that the Longmont and LTC would ever consider doing a show like O Calcutta?
I foresee a day where, yes, that could happen, or the Full Monty, something like that, because we've actually started pushing the boundaries the last few years with doing the Rocky Horror Show, with doing Toxic Avenger is going to be coming up.
You shouldn't have mentioned Rocky Horror, because Rick Landrum and myself put in to do that show 3 years in a row, got rejected.
Right, they've rejected Tommy. That might show up again.
Why would they reject Tommy? Oh, right, let's not get into politics.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah.
Ooh, I won't start with that.
They wanted to do Rent this coming season, but rights weren't available
Right,
for it.
yeah.
So I foresee a shift in, let's just do a big book musical and keep it nice and safe for our subscriber audience, because our subscriber audience is changing. And there was a huge shift with Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd brought people from Denver. We had people walking in who had never heard of Longmont Theater Company, but they wanted to see that show. Rocky Horror Show has now been done twice and has broken records. So there's a new vision of
Right.
saying we need some new things out there.
Yeah.
We need to push the boundaries a little bit. So I foresee it coming down the
It was
pike.
funny, actually, because Rick and myself were both very upset that Rocky did so well, because it proved that we were always correct.
You were right.
We
See,
were
you were
always
right.
correct. And, you know, let's see if any of you know the answer to this. Has there ever been nudity on Longmont Theatre stage?
Not
On purpose?
intentionally.
You're coming pretty close.
Every show I've been in Longmont, I have had not all my clothes. Literally.
I'm getting back into...
Look.
I'm going to start directing again.
Yeah, this one gets there.
Do you know the show O Calcutta?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, yeah, you're a little bit young for that, because that is the 60s.
Okay.
This is when the West End of London pushed and pushed and pushed, and they kept taking that boundary and moving it and moving it and moving it. And there's probably 3 shows out there that just, well, it proved
goes-
you can do whatever you wish on stage.
Okay.
Do you know the show O Calcutta?
I know of it. Yes.
Do you think it'll ever come to Longmont?
I have to agree with Melissa that it's possible. A community theater's health, especially, depends on the volunteers. Depends
Yes.
on everyone coming in. And with Sweeney Todd, with Rocky Horror, even with Gypsy, we've had people drive from far away to
Arvada,
come,
Lakewood.
from Arvada and Lakewood and Fort Collins to come and do this show, and the same thing with Sweeney Todd. We had people from Denver and I think somebody was from Golden.
Throw
or
in
something.
Narnia as well here.
Ranch.
Yes, and that's so important for a community theater's health. You have to get new people
Yes.
and more people. And so I think that they're looking to push those boundaries cautiously, within reason. But I think that it will potentially get there someday.
And I didn't give you the answer to my my other question. Yes, there has been nudity on stage, and it was Veronica's room.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense.
And that's where Jim Randazzo picks her up and then carries her off the couch. And there were 5 seats that were stage left that we wanted to charge triple for because that had the best view. But that's beside the point.
I think you might want to direct O Calcutta. That's what
Yes,
I'm getting
I think.
here.
I would love, I mean, I wouldn't mind which show it was, but I would love to direct a show that was willing to push the boundaries out the window. But you just have to push and push and push and push and not get complacent.
Right.
You know, I must admit, though, you know, you always want to fill the bums in seats for the final show of the year. And I've always been a big advocate that to do a big musical is good. And there are so many well-known musicals out there that, and you wouldn't be repeating yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the LTC now start to repeat itself a little bit too much. Because, I mean, it's not like you're repeating shows that they did 20 years ago or 30 years ago. They're repeating shows that you only did 10 years ago. And I find this a little strange.
One of the things that's been interesting with Faye Lamb, she's asking for input about what's out there that people don't know about, what's out there that we can try that hasn't been done. And so I do see a shift in the forward thinking with the members of the board right now. Our musical director, Tanya Daugherty, is on the board, and she's very forward thinking in terms of what is available out there. So I do see, and I agree with Jay, there's a cautious move forward, but there is a definite move forward.
Good.
And I think it depends too on the volunteers, the directors who come and pitch those shows and say, I want to try something and I can make this work.
Yeah, but if they are pitching it to the old production group,
there's been a shift in some
Okay.
of the production group, and I think there will continue to be a shift. And I know that there's also been talk about how do we get some of the actors involved in the production group so that we've got an actor's viewpoint looking at what's coming down the pike.
Right.
So I'm hopeful that there's going to be growth as
Good.
opposed to just saying, let's do, you know,
Yeah.
the same
Hard
old, same
same
old.
thing
the
over and
Music
over
Man,
again.
And yeah.
And if I may, I think that's kind of important.
No, you may not.
All right.
Of course you may.
I think that's kind of important for every community theater, right? No matter which community theater you're part of, whether it's Longmont or whether it's even in another state, you can be part of that solution, right? So people can join, you know, production committees or reading committees or become producers and push for the things that they want to see. So I think a lot of people who maybe want to get involved but aren't sure how could look into some of those parts of it, because it's very easy to sit back and go, well, they didn't make the right decision or they're not choosing the right shows. But we'll get in there and become part of the they and,
Yeah.
you know,
Become a part of the solution, not a part of the problem.
Right, and maybe the first 3 times you call, they don't want to do it, but
Right.
You can keep trying, and I think that's a good part of the community theater. You know, you don't have to have a masters in theater to come in and pitch a show.
That's true. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us this Saturday morning here for this Actors Take. Have you all enjoyed yourselves?
Yes.
Very
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
Excellent. We've now got that on film, so you can't change your mind. Are there any final words that you'd like to give?
Go see live theater. Bring your kids to see live theater. Keep live theater going and thriving.
Yes.
Go see shows. Go see shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree. No, I agree with that. Support theater. Go see it.
Yeah.
Also, buy your local newspaper.
If
need
there
help
is
Spay
one.
and neuter your pets.
If there is one.
Spay and neuter your pets.
Yeah.
Don't text and drive.
Yes.
I want to thank my cast. I'm going to call you my cast here today. So, I'm Nigel Aves, your host, signing off from the Captain's Lounge studio. This was an Actor's Take coming to you live from Longmont. Thank you very much.